We are live. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, for wherever part of the world you're joining us. This is the second virtual event of the VRARA Seattle Chapter. We have the honor today to have Eric Hanson as our featured speaker. But before we get started, I want to take a minute or two to introduce what VRARA is for those of you that are joining either this live call or later on the recording. The VRARA Association is a global organization with over 65,000 members that join on a monthly basis the different events that we have. We are based out of, we work out of chapters that operate in over 60 cities around the world. So today you're just joining the Seattle chapter event, and we welcome all of you. We operate with a small and mighty team that I want to introduce everybody. I want to start with my program's chair, Julia Beabout.
Yeah, hello everybody. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to be going off camera and mic today because I'm not feeling too well. But I am the program chair, and we love to collaborate on programming, and we get our best ideas from our members and attendees. So if there's something you want to hear about, learn about, please let us know. We'd love to get a program together with you on that.
Thank you, Julia. And also to help supporting the chapter is Arian Kulp. Arian, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Arian Kulp. I'm the founder of VR Voyaging, a website focusing on VR experiences, and I'm also the communications chair for VRARA Seattle. Very, very happy to welcome Eric to our session this week, and very excited to hear what he has to offer.
Thank you, Arian. So we have an amazing program today with Eric. He's going to show us amazing visuals that I encourage all of you to stick around and bear with us. And we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, so you can go straight to Eric, straight to the source for any questions you might have about what he does with Blueplanet VR. I would also want to encourage everyone to engage with what the VRARA has to offer. Aside from the chapters and these virtual meetings, we have weekly committee meetings that are industry specific. So you have anything from very specific talks to workshops on marketing, to operations, to industrial, defense, any
healthcare.
Healthcare, it's a big one, right? And the organization also, we just had our annual European Summit virtually, which had over 40 different speakers that in the course of almost 4 hours, they gave us what they're doing to impulse XR in the European community, right? So that was, I encourage you to see this recording now available in LinkedIn. So VRARA Europe Summit available now. And and the organization does these kind of summits every 6 months to a year. And specifically, each industry will also have different summits, right? We're going to have a defense summit later in April. So I encourage you, if you're in the defense space, want to see what the defense is doing, very forward-looking in terms of what they're able to spend, in terms of spend defense budgets, right, in mid-April. So without further ado, I want to introduce Eric. Eric, I'm going to leave the mic to you, and you have all the controls in the meeting. I encourage everybody, Nina, Rodrigo, David, Norma, to participate. Open your mics, ask questions. We're here to learn, connect, and grow. So Eric, please take it away.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, everybody. Let me share screen just to begin. And I think you can all see that okay? All right. Okay, very good.
Yep, coming
all
up.
right. Well, thanks so much for the invite. I've been giving a number of different talks lately, so your timing is good. This is a brand new or kind of fresh set of slides. But nonetheless, yeah, I'm happy to kind of relate my creative pathway, I think, to, let me move this, to my path in VR, which has been quite an adventure. And as a matter of fact, I'll show you in the last slide, I pulled out my first VR headset, cleaning out some drawers yesterday, and it was like, oh my God, that was back in 2005. So yeah, it's been quite a road, quite an adventure. And I'm also a faculty member at the USC School of Cinematic Arts. And so I instruct students both in VR and in animation and visual effects. And the one thing that I always say about this field, VR included, is that it's creative work, but the real creativity is how you conduct your career. And the path that you choose to take, I think, is one of the most valuable things about working in digital media and VR specifically, because you can hand tailor your career precisely to what you're passionate about. And my current occupation of developing Blueplanet is simply that. It's simply a passion project for things that I find fascinating in the world and wanting to celebrate those particular things. So anyway, so let me get on with the lecture here. Let's go ahead and let's see, this will advance. I'm not going to go into this. I'm just going to hold this for a second, but here you can see kind of, what my skill base is. I spent 20 years in feature film visual effects here in LA, working for all the major effects houses. I originally was an architect, so consider myself a designer above all else. And I look at VR and film as just other forms of design. And so anyway, but I took it upon myself to develop a lot of virtual environments within feature film. Was one of the first ones to kind of help adopt creating digital environments as opposed to practical ones. And in any case, but I came to a pivot point about 15 years ago where I kind of elected to leave feature film behind and embark on my own area, taking those skills, but applying them to things that I find fascinating in the world. But here, this is a slide from my teaching, but you can see the types of subjects and skill base that I have. Again, I was an early adopter of 3D in the architectural profession and applied that at a very early day using CAD systems, an outgrowth of CAD. So this was kind of very early work, even in architecture. But then moving into feature film, I saw opportunity for improving. I think what always frustrated me about features was kind of a naive view of future cityscapes and urban environments. So with my design background at that time, I found good fortune to, my first film was The Fifth Element quite some time ago. I think I was 95 or 96 now. And was able to kind of art direct and lead a team for the digital cityscape. And it was an interesting mix of practical, full size, miniatures, and CG throughout. And it kind of set my course in that 20 years of feature work. I returned back to digital domain to oversee the cityscape for The Day After Tomorrow, which was another big urban effort. So the point of showing this, and this is also a few years spent at Disney doing visual development work on the city of Atlantis and Fantasia. But the thread here is that it's all about environments and all about design. But I did have one interesting pivot point, having spent all these years doing fictional environments and creation, was working on the film Castaway, which is actually, most people would never consider an effects film because it's simply invisible effects, effects that are not apparent to the audience. So in this case, you can actually see Tom Hanks was actually just up the road from his home in Malibu and just on PCH here. So this is and this was an opportunity to learn how to capture and recreate the natural world. And that's what kind of set me on the path that I've been on for the last 15 years. Again, I instruct at USC, and this is an animation and digital arts program. We have students that use all types of media and approaches, but it's all story driven. And these are the classes that I've organized and taught over the years. And again, my teaching is always reflective of what my current practice is. So you can see here 2 VR classes, 502 and 04. Experiments in immersion, that starts with a stereoscopic film, a deep frame. Then it goes into full dome that I spent years in. spherical, omnidirectional, and then finally ending up in VR. And then I have another kind of master class in VR where the student gets to do one piece for the entire term. It's kind of a project studio. And these are some images from that. I'm sure this audience, more than anyone, I usually have to explain what a lat long image is. I think everyone here knows that term. But in any case, these are some of the examples of things that students ideate. And you can see using Quill here, using Maya, using any number of 3D packages, real time these days. Actually, my current class is almost entirely Unity projects and a few UE put in there. But in any case, and then this is a field trip. One thing that I have the pleasure of doing is taking the students out to the Mojave Desert to a really wonderful place called Red Rock. And I've been bringing classes out here for, oh gosh, I don't even know, probably well over 20 years. And it serves a couple purposes. One is to expose international students to the beauty that is in our state here in California. And number two is to get them to be increase their sensitivity to the natural world as a creative muse, because nature and natural spatial form has always been kind of my main muse. But anyway, you can see what has been done here. So that we do it's basically a workshop of HDR, high resolution panoramas, and photogrammetry. And we incorporate all this and we come back and then do these modifications creatively. So it's a great deal of fun to take people out there. And let's see, there we go. Okay, so this leads me into a major pivot that happened to me about 15 years ago. And I'll just tell this quick story. Is that myself and my business partner at that time, my good friend at that time, Greg Downing, we were camping in the High Sierra, and we were bemoaning the fact that about visual effects, of which we were both active in, just our frustrations. And Greg said, I think I've built and destroyed New York about 5 times now. And I thought, well, let's see. And I counted, and I think I came up with about 4 times. So as I always say, between us, we built and destroyed New York about 10 times. And we just said, there's got to be something better to be done with these tools and the skills that we built up. And we both have a great passion for cultural heritage and the natural world. So it's kind of a lightning bolt came out of nowhere and just said, wake up, look around you, why not work in this? So I turned my back from fiction and look towards the real world and all the incredible mystery and magic that exists in the real world. So anyway, this was a big pivot. We ended up doing some research in gigapixel resolution imagery, I'll show you in a minute, that led to us forming this company, XRES Studio, standing for Extreme Resolution initially. And so because we are technical artists, we got very enamored with this notion of gigapixel, of assembling images from with long lenses, of creating just massive resolution panoramas. So we kind of took this, what was really a research paper at that time, I think in a European university, but then tried to develop it into a visual effects pipeline and make it a usable production methodology for image making. So anyway, we worked with different robotic devices. This was the first one, a company called Peace River on the East Coast. And this is something that they kind of appropriated for us for our purposes. You can see the amount of overlap and the amount of images taken. This is very early. This is probably 2000, gosh, I don't know, 5 or something, that we were developing this. And at this time, we were saying, oh, wow, you could get 2.6 gigapixel out of this at 73K by 36K for a lat long. And today, this is nothing. Actually, today, you can get in the hundreds of thousands of pixels with gigapixel pretty effortlessly, whereas this was a lot of R&D at the time. But in any case, what that allowed us to do was create these very large images that contain just endless amounts of detail within one image. And this is a very banal image, but one I shot at SIGGRAPH one year in Chicago, or I'm sorry, in Boston. And anyway, we at that time, Google Maps had just released and they had an open API. So we redirected that app away from the map tiles and over to our image tiles. And this became a huge viral event that went on for months. And as a matter of fact, took our ISP down. They got so much traffic and they kicked us out, which was, I thought, very funny for an ISP to do. But this showed the possibility of, you know, of the I don't know, I guess the compelling aspect of this kind of imagery. So then we got very, very motivated to continue with this, and we ended up trying to put our robotic devices in unique places in the outdoors. And again, either from rappelling to visiting, you know, just spectacular locations and coming up with all these different rig devices, and then integrating that with 3D in Maya, in a 3D app. Now, this is one image, more recent. We've kind of stopped doing this work years ago in favor of VR, but this is one image, and if you go to blueplanetVR.com, you can go to About, and you'll find this case study. But this, let me full screen right here. So this is a recent, well, about 4 years ago, gigapixel that we did with a climber friend of ours in Yosemite Valley, who's a very expert climber. So he said he could climb the nose of El Cap in a single day, and if we could document that. And I said, yeah, we certainly will. So what we did here, if we roll in now at the beginning, so this is the nesting of the resolution, is I put a red shirt on him and a yellow shirt on his buddy, a little Where's Waldo. And then we basically had an 800 mil prime from Canon that they loaned us, and then shot them every 2 or 3 minutes, making their way up the route. So, and this, of course, you know, demanded a huge amount of compositing on Photoshop side. And here's Roger kind of giving us a gesture. But in any case, you can see what all the steps are now to climb one of the legendary rock climbs in the world. And this became a very interesting thing. And then what we then did was go back the next day and train the robotic device to shoot the grand mosaic of the wall, and composited the whole thing together. So next time you're in Yosemite, this is actually in the newest climbing museum, which is in the visitor center, and they printed this out, I think, pretty large. I think it's about 7 by 11 feet, and you can take a look at this. But anyway, this is, so now I'm gonna go back to the Prezzo here. But this was my initial kind of fascination with where computer graphics could take us. Then, because we're 3D artists, we began to get, we realized there was a lot of opportunity in the full dome world, basically digital planetariums, which had shifted over to digital projection and offered all kinds of opportunities. So we began down a road for a few years of working in full dome. And interestingly enough, I'm coming back to this year. I just joined the board of Dome Fest West, and we have an event planned for early in May at the Fisk Planetarium in Boulder, Colorado, a really terrific dome. So anyway, but all the work we're doing with panoramas kind of fell into, or kind of merged into full dome very nicely. And we created an early film called Crossing Worlds that kind of explored these techniques. Some years went by, and then VR kind of came up again. Not originally with the Go, as you know, but this is that point where VR kind of peaked, or was peaking rather, in investment about 8 years ago or so, 8, 9 years. And so we took our skills from full dome and applied those to VR, kind of loving the fact that we now had a full sphere to work with and not just a hemisphere. So this was a really great time. We were, you know, as all of us, I'm sure, in this audience experienced the excitement of those times. I think they're still here, but certainly that was kind of a crazy period. But we aligned ourselves with different companies. So Jaunt set up a studio here in Santa Monica, and we became involved in that team, and still have one of their cameras actually on hand. And they sent us around the world to a few places to shoot some films for them, and also got involved with Nokia with the Ozo camera. which of course were terrific cameras, cutting edge at the time, but you know, maybe a little less resolution now than what we have currently. One of these film projects was going down to Machu Picchu, and I took historic photographs and shot modern material and kind of told the story of Machu Picchu. And this is just one image. Again, I would take the time to show this in VR, but you can take my word for this. In VR, and you'll know how to read lat longs anyway. This is a terrific diagram of something that I learned about Machu Picchu, is that it can only exist in one place on Earth where it is, because it's in kind of cosmic alignment with the Southern Cross, a very sacred mountain called Salcantay, Machu Picchu, the Urubamba River kind of snaking around it, and the celestial plane actually making a perfect dome about it. So it's a fascinating story. So we tried to show some of this in 3D. And of course, this is rendered out of a 3D app with digital elevation GIS data. This led into all kinds of other very interesting full dome projects. We ended up working through New Mexico Arts on a dome film with a collaboration made between Ai Weiwei, the great Chinese artist, and Burt Benally, who's a terrific Navajo artist. And they did this. This is actually Burt's piece, kind of a four-direction piece, and then Ai Weiwei contributed his own imagery. This is a land art event, and we created we relied on a lot of photogrammetry for this to create a film that kind of talks about that collaboration. And this landed into another really joyful project of working with Bjork. I had a student of mine who ended up becoming a primary director for Bjork for a number of years. And at one point she said, I have a retrospective coming up with MoMA, and I would like to have a full dome where the audience can walk in real time across a digital landscape of Iceland. So Andy said, oh, I think I know the person. So he brought us into the team, and it was just a terrific collaboration with her. This is, so we went over and did all kinds of capture of Iceland. This is shooting both laser scanning and photogrammetry of a particular feature in the landscape that narratively plays into these pieces. And here you can see it being used in this film. And this is the laser scan data. And again, this was, again, trying to use scanned, which I say assets to help storytelling and enriching the story. Another fascinating job at that time that we were very lucky to do was collaborate with David Brashears, who I will note just passed a week or two ago. But David is was one of the great American climbers, having climbed Everest, many times. But he learned about gigapixel from us and began his own documentation process of the Himalaya for environmental purposes. So, and I'll talk about photogrammetry, it's kind of leading into that, but at that time we were becoming fairly skilled with it. So we proposed this to him, and he took us up on the offer of creating a custom rig for one of the A-Star helicopters that operates out of Everest Base Camp. And then he flew this up to, I think he said he flew as high as 28,000 feet and captured this sequence of photogrammetry, which ended up being just an amazing data set. And in the end, this is kind of the early rendition of it, but in the end was used fundamentally on the film Everest by a visual effects team in Reykjavik. But so you're looking at pretty much all the photogrammetry on that particular shot. Then we got this crazy idea of, well, why couldn't we just capture gigapixel from the skies, and came up with this crazy rig. It's probably a good thing this never got built, but this was proposed to Canon and through an aerial cinematography company we work with. And they got very excited by this back in the day. And it sounded like they were going to provide all the cameras, and Space Cam was the other company who was going to provide the engineering. And we would use this both for photogrammetry and gigapixel documentation of all kinds of areas, whether fields, whether it's from disaster relief, perhaps, to forestry inventories, all types of things. And but unfortunately, a week later, after this incredible meeting we had, the Fukushima earthquake happened. And probably many of you may not know this, but Canon and Nikon's plants are in Fukushima, and they were both hugely affected by the tsunami there. So anyway, so that kind of squashed this deal for the moment. But like I say, today, this whole kind of GIS acquisition is now highly specialized, and this would be seen as probably an antiquated thing today. But anyway, this slide here kind of reviews the techniques that we developed in that company to capture things at various scales. So we helped develop this device called the Gigamacro that a friend of mine markets to universities and research outfits. And this does an XYZ gigapixel capture of microscopic or macroscopic subjects. And then of course, so going from the very small to something at human scale, obviously using panoramic techniques, using photogrammetry techniques with poles and such. And then, of course, going up to drones, and then going up to fixed wing or heli, and then ultimately going up to satellite imagery. And so we came up with methodology that could employ any of this kind of scale for any subject that we would like to capture. And we still utilize all these methods to this day. Anyway, about that time, so now we'll get around to the VR, is that it became clear, and I'll talk about a certain event that we had that really kicked all this off, but it became obvious that maybe we could commercialize this to an extent. And actually, this was 10 years ago, it looks like, with the idea of sharing all this content that we've been amassing in a new and innovative way. So at this time, it was VR Traveler, and it's kind of the idea behind it. So to take some of this panoramic imagery that we had, either dimensionalize it or use photogrammetry. This was on the shoot that we went to the Himalaya. So taking some of the Everest Base Camp images and providing, again, this is some of the first VR work that we executed. And this would be kind of giving an understanding of base camp and what goes on there and so forth within a headset. Again, this is based more on 360 panoramas, less on photogram like we're doing now. And then what happened is we had this amazing experience where Greg had captured this tomb. He was working with Nat Geo on a job in Egypt called Lost Treasures of the Nile. And this is actually a little tomb that's designed to flood and sanctify the tomb. It's right over the Nile. And he had done a very early photogrammetry capture with this using Agisoft at that time. And someone came in our office, actually someone from Jaunt, and said, you should take this, and instead of rendering it in Maya, you should take it into a gaming engine. And neither Greg or I had any experience with that, but we quickly brushed up on Unity a bit and threw it in. And I think the Vive 1 had just released, and we took a look at it, and I call it our Watson Bell moment, because Greg looked at it and he said, "Eric, get over here and look at this thing." And first time I put the headset on, looking at this, I just got chills down my spine. It was like I couldn't believe the sense of presence that real-time reality would give you. And when I say real, I mean based on real-world photogrammetry. I think it does something significantly stronger than anything fictional will do, because you're bringing in real light, real surface detail. You're bringing in you're just hyper feeding your brain with 6 degrees of freedom parallax, but coupled with reality. And I just think it has a much more profound effect on someone than anything synthetic or CG. So anyway, this just solidified, this was the bee's knees for me. And I just thought, okay, well, rest of my career, I'm just going to hunker down and concentrate on this. So photogrammetry, I think most of you in this audience probably well understands this, but it's really just a modern way of capturing complex environments with very simple equipment, with DSLRs or even a phone to some extent. Now, of course, all this, I didn't include this in this lecture, but of course, all this is in the is getting ready to be upended by advances in AI capture techniques and processing techniques. And so this, if you check back with me in 6 months or a year, I'll probably say, well, photogrammetry, it'll be a history lesson in photogrammetry, I suspect. But for now, this is still a very useful technique and has been for a number of years. But in any case, it's a easier way to capture than using a laser scanner. And laser scanners are terrific. This is a case where Autodesk hired us to compare. They lent us one of their $60,000 scanners, said go travel around and do some captures and do them both in photogram and laser scanning. Let's compare them. And we did, and we found that photogrammetry at that point in time was actually kind of very closely matching the accuracy of a laser scanner. Now, there's fundamental, I'm not going to go into this, but there's fundamental strengths and weaknesses of both, but they actually play well together. But for natural subjects, like what Greg is standing next to here, really a laser scanner is not that necessary. The photogrammetry can actually be used as your primary device. So that's kind of what interested me, was just the efficiency and the lightweight version. I do a lot of long distance hiking and outdoor exploration. And for me, the idea of just simply having a camera, but being able to faithfully recreate environments was just stunning. I think it still is. But anyway, the other thing I want to say about this, and actually at the end of the talk, I will chat it, is Autodesk hired me or invited me a few years ago to create a class in these techniques for Autodesk University. So these are slides from a slide deck that is public. You can download this if you want to just kind of survey these techniques that we've developed. And I think it has roughly the same title as the opening shot, but I'll give you that link to this if you want to delve a little deeper into the technical aspects. So these are just like lessons learned and kind of rules of thumb or kind of protocol that you may want to, like I say, I'm not here to go through all this, but these are some cases. Now, what I'll do at the end of the talk is I'll take you into one of these, actually I'll talk about this in a minute, but I'll show you some of this interior capture technique from that. But the beauty of photogrammetry is that it's, as I say, it's kind of, you know, we've all heard the quote, "A million monkeys in front of typewriters will create a great novel." I'm not sure if that's necessarily true, but you can kind of be a little bit mindless as you take the images. But as you do more of this, so this is myself walking along this Native American site. And but you'll see it's kind of you know, chaotic, a little bit stochastic as I'm going through, but at the same time there's a methodology to it, and that's you know, worth learning. But the fact is you can kind of get started with this very simply. So the technique is very forgiving. It's not that accurate as far as needing, you know, minute or kind of measured divisions or anything. It's really just studying a visual subject and shooting for all possible views or occlusions that are based on the subject. And one thing that I do find really invaluable is using a Nodal Ninja carbon pole. And this, as you can see, these are the shots up here that are facing downward. And I kind of turn the pole in a circle just to get kind of the groundscape, which you can get obliquely from the ground, but if you shoot it more perpendicular from a height, you can get much more faithful groundscape. So anyway, these are just an example of some of the technique. The beauty of this is that is a three-dimensional model that you're looking at there, so you can get things that are incredibly faithful to your source photography. And I just find this still to this day a stunning aspect of doing the work. It's just sheer magic to be able to recreate a spatial experience based on stills. But in any case, so let's keep going. And of course, drones can be used. Drones are fabulous for the aerial novel points of view you can get. I was just in Hawaii, and week before last, I chartered a helicopter for a spectacular coastline shot that I'll have in Blueplanet coming up, where you can hang glide along this stunning, location. So, but the point is, aerial capture is always favorable for a lot of reasons. A lot of what I do in my work these days, though, is really based on being from the position of a user, of an experient, if you will, and traveling throughout a site. So, but again, drones I use, I'd say maybe a third of the time to kind of augment what I'm doing. Actually, the best use of drones that I've been doing these days is just simply for the 360 panorama that is achieved. And we'll talk about the Apple headset at the end, but that's one thing I've found is the drone work I've done, just the panoramic work, is just absolutely stunning on the resolution of the Apple headset. And it's the simplest, we're talking a Mini 3, which is about a $700 or $800 drone, is creating content that just looks unbelievable on the Apple headset. So it's pretty exciting. But anyway, let's keep moving. So here's now some examples of Blueplanet, and I'll talk about why this happened in a moment. But here's examples of photogrammetry. This is, I've done several shoots at Carlsbad Caverns for different projects. And here we might, see what, that's the final result. But in fact, this is the geometry. And it shows you again, the incredible resolution. As a matter of fact, the first time I went down there, I thought there's no way photogrammetry could do this. And that's one thing that I have learned from years of doing that, is I've never found a subject that I couldn't capture. Well, at least within a topology standpoint, within a complexity standpoint. There's certainly subjects like cars and reflective things that are off limits. But for sheer geometric complexity, it's just it's still amazing to me how faithful it can be. This is a project that I've also continuing to work on throughout the years. This is a nonprofit based here in Santa Monica that we work with the Navajo Nation, and I don't have the time to go into the whole backstory of it. You can go to onwardproject.org if you'd like to learn more. And it's a fabulous initiative to kind of cross cultures and to kind of give homage to a very famous expedition in the 1930s that was done to aid the Navajo, but also document archaeologically some of these last remaining sites. So these are sites that are very close to the public. They really haven't been seen much at all publicly, but we have had the ability to go in and capture these in VR, and these are actually in the product in Blueplanet. You can virtually walk around as an archaeologist and experience these just absolutely stunning locations. And we looked at this one a bit earlier. Okay, so anyway, lastly, then about 8 years ago, I think I took, well, maybe less than that, sorry, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, I got very motivated to finally create this product and share some of this great content. So anyway, I chose to call it Blueplanet. It was no homage to BBC, but I've had people like some reviews say, this is not BBC, like they were offended. It's like, well, that's not the idea. It was simply to celebrate the Earth and these amazing locations. And again, this is a recent capture of an abandoned nuclear facility in Washington State. Actually, being that this is Seattle, VRARA, you would appreciate this. This is outside of Olympia. You probably know about this, called Satsop. And you can get film permits here. And I just had the most wonderful time capturing it. So this is a little deviation from the natural environments. But again, it goes back that I'm interested in spatial experiences primarily in VR. That's what does it for me. So anyway, these are a collection now that I released about, I think it is 4 years ago, on the Rift, and then followed up with a port over to the Quest. And I think when it came out on the Rift, I also launched it on Steam at that time. So it exists on Steam at the highest resolution. I'm a big fan of Vive Pro headsets, the Vive Pro 1 specifically for the OLED. Of course, now things are in flux with the introduction of the Apple headset, which kind of dusts the resolution of anything prior. But nonetheless, these are all photogrammetry environments, just a fraction of them. Actually, I have 90 now. I just did a big update with new volumes, extensible volumes of locations. But so anyway, so these are kind of what I offer to the public for experiences. And these are, I'm a passionate traveler and explorer of the natural world, and these are just things that very particularly interest me. I did not design this app to be a mass market kind of travel app. That's not the intention. It was really just it was kind of an experiment for me of things that I'm passionate about and I'd like to share. So it's, and I enjoyed capturing. So it's really, every one of these is kind of hand curated for very particular reasons. This is a small little trailer I'll play. It's about a minute or just over. And this is a recent compilation. Alrighty. So you could probably tell I enjoy heights. I used to fly hang gliders in a prior life, and so that's one thing I really do appreciate. Whoops, sorry. Let me, yeah, go for it. Okay. Now I know we're short on time. These are actually the last slides. I'm just going to blast this real quick, and I'm going to load this scene and just kind of take you through one of these shots. But this is a project that's never been made public. It's done for a foundation actually based in the Northwest. Mimi Gates, so I'm sure you know, is a great benefactor, and she has a PhD in Asian art. She runs the Redmond Museum of Asian Art. And she approached us, her organization, a few years ago, a number of years ago, probably 5, 6 years ago, to take these techniques and apply them to the Magao Caves in China. Now, me being a standard American said, what are the Magao Caves? Because we just don't know that over here, but it is the great cultural heritage site of China. And it's Buddhist kind of fashioned caves, artistic caves that were created about during the Silk Road era. So here's the base model. Here's the final rendering of this. Of probably about 8 or 9, well, ranging from 1,000 to maybe 500 years ago, say. And there's 500 of these side by side on a cliff wall in the Gobi Desert in a very remote section of China. And it's just a fabulous place to go. It's open for tourism. They kind of limit your access to the caves because of the fragility of them. You can see here's a sensor that measures humidity and 1 carbon dioxide for the breath of visitors. They also work with the Getty here in LA to help preserve too. But so what we did here was we've captured, I think, about 9 of these so far. And the idea is to provide virtual visitation that doesn't have the detrimental effects of physical visitation, as well as just kind of celebrate the beauty of these locations. So lastly, and I'm going to show one, let's see. Yeah, let me go. Do I have a minute to run the headset? Yeah. Okay, Roberta. Yeah, this won't take long. And what I'll do here is launch. This is going to take just a minute to launch up the build. And we're going to have to sit through just about 30 seconds of text at the beginning. So again, this was made as a kind of an in-house presentation for the foundation.
Welcome to the Mogal Caves. Select the introduction icon for the full experience, the simple tour for an overview, or locate a specific cave with the cave's icon.
And of course, during a demo, it's launching. That's ridiculous. Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Is it possible to see you on your camera, Eric, as you have your headset on?
Now on the grounds of the Mogal Caves.
Probably not. I'll try to go slow on the headset though.
Okay.
Because I know that it can be disorienting. Okay, so now he's done speaking, but this is photogrammetry of only about a half of the length of the caves. So this is one large capture just to show the range. But what I'm going to do is, actually, I'll take you into this one initially. And this is one of the very small caves, but here we have interactive light. So I wanted to give the viewer an experience of being a discoverer of the cave and looking through. And what I can now do is teleport in a little closer and then look up and see this. Now we can also, each one of these little informational kiosks will kick off information or interactive animation. But let me turn it into daylight. And then we can see. Now, one thing that we did very carefully on this project is we use gigapixel resolution texturing and capture throughout. So and I'm going to take you to a good example of that. So this one is just an unbelievably spectacular location. Actually, let me move away from the audio. And we can see the degree of artwork and detail in this. It's just quite extraordinary. So what we did to assist with this detail was this UI. So we would have a camera and a viewer, much like an iPad and a telephoto lens. And we can go in and examine all the gigapixel detail of these subjects. And this is actually kind of a gruesome little bit here. Here we have two of his followers giving them their own lives with knives or swords. This gentleman's cutting his ear off to give a little bit of flesh to the Buddha. So this is all a very fascinating range of emotion, ranging from placidity to overwhelming emotion of all the bodhisattvas and followers. Now, the other interesting thing about this is that we can visit this site. Normally, there's large panels of plexiglass that are placed in here. So not only can you see this solo without a crowd and without any interference, but we can also experience it from a place that no public can go. So now I'm up here on a ledge that, trust me, the Chinese government would not be happy if you climbed up on here. But in VR, we can experience that. And I can go down here and get a view of this monumental Buddha, which is just an extraordinary thing to see, especially in the headset. And again, more exquisite artwork and an amazing location. So to this day, this has been one of the most fascinating. I can hop over here and look at this art up close and see this from a very unique perspective that no viewer could see. Okay, so I'm going to take that off.
Thank you for taking us through that. I think that was the highlight of the presentation.
Oh, good, good, fantastic.
Everybody
I'm
can
going to stop
agree.
sharing it. Oh, one last slide I just wanted to say is this was what I found in my drawers the other day, and I forgot all about. Was the old E. Megan headset from 2005. And the funny thing was, I thought, I wonder what this thing costs. So I went on Amazon just right before this Prezzo, and I found this very funny review. It said expensive,
What a
$900.
ripoff.
$900. So you know the criticism that's going on with Apple, and so you know the argument's the same. Let's just put it that way. But anyway.
Wow.
Just the same
Thank you
quality
for
too,
ending
I'm
on that
sure.
note.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'll ever boot up the old E-Megan again, that's for sure.
That's
But
very
anyway,
cool.
yeah, so that's these are the kind of games that I play, but I'll tell you, I mean, as a creative individual, once I discovered 6-degree real time with photogrammetry, it was just, you know, I'm not going to stop. This is my third act, is doing this. It's so, I'm as amazed by it today as I was 8 years ago. I just find it fascinating. And of course, what's coming with AI and the Apple headset is just going to revolutionize it once again. So yeah, there's great things, you know, and I kind of, one thing I'll say, I don't want to go on about the Apple headset, but I feel like it's day one again in VR. You know, I mean, I've become a big fan of it, and I've always been adverse to Apple, but I'm kind of entering the camp again very enthusiastically.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. All right, we have a few minutes left. I want to open up to questions. We have still Rodrigo, David, Javier. Welcome. Thanks for joining. I want to start with a basic question. The environment that you've captured are clearly so high resolution that it blows my mind to just be able to put a headset there and go to places that are dangerous or even impossible to get to these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are these one of the big issues, or not big issues, but challenges for VR to place you in that and give you that sense of presence, is the realism of your environment, right? Of the skybox or whatever you want to define it. Are these assets that any creator can reach out to you, and if they want to use a piece of your capture environment, they can use for their projects, or it's only available in Blueplanet VR and for the intended purpose?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, like I say, what I showed about the X-Res days, where it was a lot of kind of work for hire, service work that we executed, but we were very careful the whole time to always try to be a creative collaborator as opposed to a vendor. And the reason, usually the deals we'd strike would be for some type of IP ownership. So, you know, now the caves that I just showed you, we own no stake in that. I was happy to do it anyway, but that's for the foundation, obviously. But yeah, so anyway, but I would say since I began to develop for the product, that's all IP that I've generated and owned. And as a matter of fact, I do license quite a bit of it out for different purposes. It's usually startups that need something. I mean, the common story is like a startup that needs something to test out some new immersive tech. I've done that for a few. But it could be, you know, for like what is it, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, who I've done a lot of work for. They licensed one of the one of the Carlsbad Cavern shots is a real-time. There's a new real-time engine for planetariums, and they did a piece on cave science, so they use that for that. So yeah, anyway, no, I mean, I'm always open to interesting use of the content. Let's put it that way.
First of all, thank you very much, Eric, for the presentation. I have a little question concerning motion sickness. I'm a former student of Montreal VR faculty in college, Saint Lambert. And as students, we did a lot of filming in 360. And when testing these films in the headsets, I noticed that like motion sickness was really an issue. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because in my VR class, I have what I call Hanson's 4 laws. And they're all designed to reduce nausea, most of them. But really, it's really as simple as this, is that the world that you create has to remain sacred or stable. right? So the problem with 360 shooting video is that oftentimes people will attach it to mountain bikes or what have you, any kind of moving object. Now, these days, most people are wise to this, or the camera manufacturer have added stabilization within the cameras, which is actually very beneficial. But yeah, you especially have to worry about nausea with 360 video. You're absolutely correct. The thing that I love about photogrammetry is that the world by its nature will be static. And I've had so many people come into my studio. They're like, "Oh yeah, VR. No, I've done that. I get really sick from doing it." And I said, "Well, what have you looked at?" And then they'll tell me. I'll say, "Well, try this. See what you think." And they'll take it off with a big smile and they'll go, "Wow, I don't feel sick at all." So yeah, that's a not. And by the way, nausea, as I explain to my students, is cognitive dissonance. It's basically your body getting conflicting signals from your inner ear, which is motion, and of course your optical system. So and if those are not in concert with each other, your body wants you to stop and causes nausea. It's your internal system trying to get you to stop what you're doing. That's what nausea is. And it is a big issue in VR. But like I say, it depends on the content. But I do have these rules that consider acceleration, movement, et cetera. Because you can't forget, I mean, it's a camera, but it's really the viewer is the camera, right? In all cases. So, but anyway, but yeah, it's a good point. It's something always to pay attention to. Luckily, the kind of work I do, it's just not present at all, which is great.
I find the other thing, at least personally, there's the experience, there's how you move in the experience in a more of a game environment where you're likely to be sliding around. That's instant nausea for me.
Yeah.
If I'm walking around or if I'm flying above the ground, that makes a big difference. But the other thing that really makes a difference to me is really just the optics. If I have VR lenses versus I have my glasses on, I've got a pair that are like kind of elastic, like you might wear for sports, what I'm wearing on my face and the exact way that I mesh up with the lenses, that can be nausea regardless of the experience. So there are definitely multiple factors to look at there beyond, like I think what you said is perfect, like the capture itself, and especially in these static environments. I don't think that's the concern as much as the fit and focus of the person and then how you're moving within the environment.
Well, it's kind of funny because some of the negative reviews I get, luckily not an equal number, but I get a fair share of negative reviews. And the reason for that is that I think the expectation is that it's a game, which it's not. And the other thing has to do with like gaming mechanics. So like I don't embrace any gaming mechanics. I don't want to. I don't want it to be seen as a game or feel as a game. I want it to be purely experiential, and I want the location to be center stage. So I don't want to have a lot of devices or functionality present because I want you to relate to the location. So anyway, because of that, I've chosen teleporting as my primary locomotion, and it is an old idea. It's been around, but I'll have people like, hey, I got one the other day that said, hey, it's not 2016 anymore. What are you doing? And it's like, well, it's correct for the medium, I believe. Anyway, so I would never do free locomotion because, again, nausea inducing and, it just takes away from your connection to a location.
And often you can just walk around anyway. I mean, hopefully, if you're in an environment that gives you the space, it's always preferable to walk around.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. If you have the space. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
All right, we're at the top of the hour. Some folks are leaving. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, Nina, for joining. David, Javier, thanks for joining. Eric, I want to thank you again for taking us through this amazing journey of yours. You took us through a decades-long discovery of these visual experiences. Thank you for putting those available in Blueplanet VR. Anything else you would like to add? How can we support you, the VRARA, the viewers of today, of the video recording when they watch in the future? How can we support you?
You can process my application that I'll put in soon. Because awesome. Like I say, I've always wanted to join. I've just never gotten around to it. So yeah, I'll be happy to join board with you.
Thank you so
I
much.
was going to just mention, Eric, you didn't call this out, but a year or two ago in Seattle, you did your not exactly dome, but panoramic, not even 100% panoramic.
wonderful.
You kind of did a mix down of the VR experience that was completely just live and immersive. And I know it's not VR, but it was a really great use of your assets.
Yeah, it was
and
actually, that's another story, but very quickly, it was based on all the photogrammetry we did in the caves, but it was formatted for a cylindrical 16K surround theater that exists at the Seattle Symphony now. And yeah, that was a wonderful experience. But yeah, that's the other beauty of VR content. As a matter of fact, I'm just now embarking on 2 films of my own that I'm going to render at 16K lat-long stereo. And I'll take it out to VR, I'll take it over to full dome, and I'll take it out to IMAX. And it's going to be, I always talk about the interoperability of formatting, and I think, so this will be a good case study for that in the end. So I'm going to have those done by the end of the year. But,
Great.
we
We'll
look
pay
forward to
attention
that.
for that. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. We'll promote them at the VRARA Seattle for sure. And Julia, you have a
Yeah, I think we could have a whole nother program. Eric, I'm very curious about your post-production or post-filming process.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that could be a whole interesting program just on that, and with your a little more technical softwares on that.
Sure.
Great
Fantastic.
presentation.
Thank you.
All right. So without further ado, we're closing the presentation today. Thank you again, Eric. It was amazing.
My pleasure.
Julia and Arian for your support. Nina, everybody who joined. I'll see you around, and until our next meeting. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.